Hello and welcome to Joey and Friends. I am world famous podcaster Joey James, and I'm here with one of my friends making his debut. We love a debut.
So excited.
On the podcast. It's Michael Kern, everybody.
Hello.
The lawyer of destiny has joined us.
Indeed.
For a very special tradition of mine, this is my 5th year ranking my movies at the end of the year. I did them with Anna Shed, may she rest in peace, for several years, and she opted out. She's not into movies anymore.
I thought she died.
She did not die. Okay. No. I would not be so trite here on the podcast if she had transpired. We did 4 years. It was a good run. But I text with you about movies way more than I think about anybody else. So tell us a little about yourself, lawyer of destiny. What do you do?
I'm a lawyer.
Yeah.
It was my destiny, I guess.
To be a lawyer.
Yeah, find me on the socials, lawyer of destiny.
Yeah.
I actually don't have that as any of my social
Michael's
usernames.
Movie Bay. Should people follow, like, and subscribe?
It might come back. There was a time when I was doing very regular movie reviews on Instagram, which was great.
Yeah.
It was really fun for me, but then I just got really busy. So
It
I
was-
still watch movies.
It was right when I met you. We've been friends, I think 22.
Sounds
we were
about right,
introduced
yeah.
when Rocky Peak had its big celebration for paying off the mortgage. Do you remember
Yes,
that?
I do.
We were in the Ridge. They had those bananas with the chocolate and the
Oh,
nuts
man. There's
on
always
them.
money in the banana
It was
stand.
great,
Yeah.
always, truly. And we were introduced by our friend Christian.
I think they're like, oh, you guys are nerds. You both love
guys
movies.
go-
You should
go in the corner
Yeah,
and
you
talk."
should talk about your weird stuff.
And we've been texting about movies ever since.
I know, it's been great. A little bit about me.
Yeah.
I grew up in California.
Nice.
And
Same.
I always loved movies, but I wasn't allowed to watch that many as a kid.
Same. Yeah.
But I was raised by my parents, who I'm very grateful to, on like old classics. So like when I was 10, I was watching
Yeah.
Alfred Hitchcock movies and Frank Capra movies and, all the classics from the 30s to the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that gave me a huge base of love for film. And then I could see kind of the foundations of that into when I was old enough and they were like, go watch whatever you want.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, now I'm going to watch this stuff. And
What age was that you got your freedom?
when I was in law school, and I started law school really young, I was 17.
Oh, okay.
And I said,
I didn't know if you were going to say 23 or 13. That was really funny.
yeah,
Okay.
It could have been, it was a surprise. And that's when I kind of started, as I discovered Hulu, and I was like, let's check some stuff out. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll start watching some actual like cinema from the decades that I've been missing out on.
Honestly, a great way to do it.
It really was.
I think I might want to raise my kids that way. Just like cut it off at like 1980 or something, 70, 60, I don't even know.
I don't know. I mean, I watch basically every movie because I have the A-list pass and whatnot, and I just want to stay up to date on what's going on. I watch kids' movies, and they make me really sad. And I'm very idealistic
Now.
about the fact if I ever have kids, I don't want them watching Sonic 3.
No.
I just don't want that. Like, I want them to watch good movies.
Yeah.
And there are good movies from the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. Wizard of Oz or the early Walt Disney movies are great. But the stuff that's being peddled now, Minions, come on. What's the artistic merit behind those films?
None. Absolutely
They're
none.
cute. They make me laugh. But I don't want that. It's just like a diet of cotton candy.
Yes, 100%. And there was so much made that is just at a different pace. To me, it's the pacing that really is the problem of a movie like Minions or Sonic the Hedgehog. And yeah, I've thought about having kids and wanting to show them kind of those like first early Disney classics, and then when they're older, whatever they want to get into. So here's what I wonder if we have this in common, where it's like we were kept from the thing when we were young. Were you were raised Christian?
I was,
right?
yeah.
Me too. We were kept from the thing when we're young, and then it creates kind of I don't know if it's what creates it, but you just kind of end up with a kind of like desire. It's more alluring because it's the thing that was kept off limits. Do you relate to that at all?
I don't know, because I was still watching movies. I just wasn't watching maybe all the stuff that everybody else was.
Did you know about it and that you weren't? Because I have a very vivid memory of not getting to watch Incredibles in theaters when it came out.
I also was not allowed to watch that movie.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's weird, and maybe you don't even know this, I was almost going to go to film school. It was very close.
Wow.
But I decided ultimately to go to law school, which I think was the better choice for my life. But one of the big reasons that pushed me towards law school is when I was 15, I made a film.
Oh, wow.
A Christian film. It ended up being over an hour and 40 minutes long.
You were 15?
Yeah, we filmed from 15 to 18. It was a 3-year endeavor with a bunch of high school friends. You may not even know this, but one of the scenes was actually filmed at Rocky Peak.
Oh, my God.
And that was way before I started going there. And
That's crazy.
So, yeah, it's like a very evangelistic Christian film detective story about a kid that finds some detective gear in his attic after he moves after a tragic loss in his family and decides he wants to become a detective, but he's kind of a weirdo nerd and can't really pull it together.
Wow.
But his friends are Christians, and they're like, oh, you're a big detective now. why don't you discover and see if the Bible is true? So it's kind of
like
he's solving like a mystery in the
Case for
neighborhood.
Christ origin story.
A little bit like that.
Yeah.
So feature-length film called.
What was the last time you watched it?
My wife had never seen it, and I told her she was not allowed to until we got married.
Yeah,
and so we watched it. We watched it New Year's Eve 2023, going into 2024.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was the last time I've seen it.
And how
it holds up, honestly.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. How sincere are you being?
You know, it's tough watching yourself. I played a character in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I also wrote the movie and was like behind a lot of the production with an adult who was really passionate about making Christian film and was like, let's really make this a thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think it's impressive. I watched it and I thought, man, I was 15 and I do that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Is it a great movie?
Yeah.
It is. No, I'm just kidding. It's not.
I love it as a bit though of just owning it. Like this is a 5-star masterpiece. I just want everybody to see.
I know it's not on Letterboxd. I can't go and star it, but I'm impressed with myself, and I think it holds up.
Yeah.
For what it was.
I've had a lot of, in many air quotes, directorial efforts over the years, just with like church videos. Like I've been making church videos, like for Rocky Peak, for different ministries, for things, for a decade or more. Even just recently we filmed, Wildlife does, our middle school ministry does this thing called Tournament Series, where it's like a 3-week thing and there's a theme and there's characters and it's like in teams and it's great. And there's a theme every year. And I think as of this recording, the theme has not been announced yet. But we basically made like a little mini movie, like a 5-minute movie that I actually still have to edit. And it's just a blast because it is like a little filmmaking opportunity. There's lines and dialogue, and I get to put the camera wherever. It's a blast.
It's awesome.
Did you see the Everything film?
The which one?
I made a little short film version of the Everything skit. Did I ever send that to you?
Mm-hmm.
That's my only real thing that I was serious about and made. It was like a 5-minute short film. Do you know about the Everything skit?
I don't.
The thing churches used to do?
No.
With Jesus in a purple sash?
No.
It's terrible. It's really tacky.
No.
I made a aesthetic version of it that I'm really proud of.
I want to watch this.
I'll show you at some point.
I know that sounds awesome.
Anyway, down to the business at hand. Like I was saying, I've ranked my movie. I love ranking things. I get it from The Big Picture, a podcast that we both listen to. And so every year I do my end of year ranking. And it's taken a while to do. We're here in February, end of February. It's taken me a while to do this one. I kind of fell off the bandwagon with movies this year, not intentionally. I was looking back at my stats. I watched 63 movies from 2021. Now, I know those are rookie numbers compared to you, but that's still a lot of movies.
That's pretty good.
Way more movies than the average person.
One a week for new releases or more, 52 weeks.
I did virtual Sundance that year, so that was a big part of why I saw like a dozen in the first week of the year, and so that made it a lot more. But then I was really just trying to watch everything. So that was 63 in 2021. I've seen 19 movies from 2024. So I really...
Oh, that was 63 movies total, not...
No, sorry. I think it was 100 movies.
Okay.
I watched 100 movies in 2021.
Gotcha.
63 of those were from 2021.
2024.
Back in 2021.
Oh, back in 2021.
Yes, I watched 63 movies from 2021.
Gotcha.
So I was just watching a lot of whatever was new. And I was scrolling through it, and I was like, I don't even remember some of these movies. It's amazing how forgettable movies can be, especially when you're watching more of them.
It's true.
So anyway, now, 2024. From 2024, I've watched 18 movies from this past year.
Whoa.
A very low number. I'm a little embarrassed to even admit that.
That is very low.
How many movies have you watched in 2024?
I was trying to look at the stats because some I've watched post 2024 and some, were 2023 but came out. It's about 100 of releases that came out, which is a lot, honestly. Yeah. Especially in a year that I think kind of the takeaway is it was maybe good, but certainly not great.
I think that's my biggest takeaway.
Were there any great movies this year?
No. Yeah. Maybe one.
I'm thinking of one.
Yeah.
That's maybe great.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I realized that in real time and was just kind of less interested because I've been playing a lot of catch up to try to, watch things that I missed. But I think in kind of the middle of the year, I was like, oh, I don't think I've there's been anything that I've really loved or missed. And then looking ahead at the next 6 months, I was like, I don't know if there's anything really coming out that I'm crazy stoked or excited for. I really enjoyed 2023. Mm-hmm. Thought it was a fun year, if not a great year. That's really what I want, is for it to be a fun year. For there just to be diversity and different things to see, favorite filmmakers making things. That's kind of my ultimate movie year. Whether or not it's qualitatively great, I just want to have Barbenheimer, I just thought was fun. Like, it was fun that movies were at the center of culture. Everybody was talking about it. That was a huge weekend. That's my favorite thing, regardless of whether or not the movies are great. Fortunately, I think both of those movies are great. But either way, it was just a fun time in culture. I don't know.
I think
about it.
I think that like the more you look back, when you look at cinema in the 90s and even the early 2000s, is that movies were really the center of culture.
Yes.
And now they're so not the center of culture at all.
No.
And I don't even know that we have much of a center of culture, but I feel like attention spans have gotten so much shorter. And, movies are only successful if they run a really great TikTok marketing campaign. And that just makes me kind of sad.
Yeah.
We also have the destruction of cinema because of big IP and Marvel and things like that, where movies now, instead of going to see a cool story, it's like, I need to be guaranteed that I'm going to like this or that it's continuing a story, which is really television.
Yeah.
And people just aren't willing to spend the money to go see movies anymore. So you end up with this bottleneck of big budget movies that are hopeful to make their money back so they can start new franchises. And you see so many less of the really good 20 or 30 or 40 million dollar movies because now those cost $100 million to produce and nobody wants to finance those. And so you're seeing so much less. I mean, you look at the nominations for Best Picture this year and you think, oh, that's okay. I saw those and they were fine. But then you look back at movies that were nominated for Best Picture in the 90s and the 80s and the 2000s, you think, man, like all of those movies were awesome. All of those movies were really good, and I'm really fired up to, if I didn't see them at the time, to go back and revisit them. And we just don't have that anymore, and it does make me feel kind of sad.
Yeah. I think it's a lot more about personal taste. Like, there are Best Picture nominees that I'm really excited to talk about from this year, but not because they're these great seminal works of art that everybody was talking about. I just was listening to The Big Picture today, and they were talking about just kind of the history of the Oscars and Best Picture winners. And it used to be, if a movie won Best Picture, everyone had kind of seen it or was then going to see it because of the fact that it won Best Picture. In the last 10 years, that's not the case at all. Like, going back to like a movie like The Hurt Locker that nobody like saw or cared about, and that won Best. And I think that was kind of the beginning of the Oscars meaning less. I know you don't care a ton about the Oscars. The invite stands if you want to come watch the Oscars at my parents' house in 2 weeks.
I may.
We might talk about the Oscars a little bit about what's going to win.
I think we should.
But all that to say, we're going to rank our movies back and forth. We're each going to share 5. And then we'll do like kind of a wild card round if you just want to throw out anything.
Some honorable mentions
that you enjoyed. I have some things to talk about that were really disappointing for me this year.
Oh, nice.
There's the obvious one. And then there's also a few others that I was really looking forward to and just left me feeling real sad and wanting more. So we'll talk about what we liked, didn't like. But we'll start by just going through our top 5. As the guest, do you want to start things off?
Yeah, this was so hard for me. I always make a list because I too enjoy a list and statistics, and I kind of made my list. I always try to do it before the end of the year.
Oh, okay.
And so I think I ranked like 27 movies of my top 27 of 2024 and tried to make it kind of what I liked. And some of those on the list, like those aren't that good.
Yeah.
But they were better than some of the other ones I saw. And then, when you asked me to do this, I looked back at my list and I thought, I don't really even think about any of these movies that were in my top 5 or top 10 anymore. So I tried to kind of reorient my list around movies that really have stuck with me, that I've been excited to watch multiple times, or that I've actually talked to other people about, not just, oh, I saw that it was cool.
Yeah.
The Brutalist, a big Oscar movie, amazing achievement, $10 million budget. It's getting a lot of awards. I watched it. It's fine. It's good. It's impressive.
We watched it together.
We did.
Your second watching. Well, half of the second.
Yes. And I thought I'll probably never watch that again, and I probably won't ever talk about that movie again.
Never. Yeah. Not out of just like spite.
No, it just doesn't fire me up.
Yeah.
So that being said, I think where I have to go for my number 5, and this movie was awesome, and I saw it multiple times in theaters, and it really, really made me excited. Dune Part 2. It's just really impressive.
Yeah.
I think the biggest knock that I have against it, that's half a movie. And I don't like this trend where we're cutting movies in half. And I get it. Dune is an unadaptable book and people have tried and it hasn't been super successful. And there's so much going on in the story. Half of a movie is still half of a movie. And that kind of bums me out. And so I don't like being in a to be continued type situation.
Yes.
But for a part 2 of a series, man, Denny did it.
Do you view it as the second half of a movie or the first half of a movie? Like, when you say half of a movie, what do you mean?
Well, it's part 2.
Okay, gotcha. So but it also ends on it's a middle movie.
The thing is I've read Dune.
Okay.
I didn't think it was that great. I think it may be a little overhyped. I did read Dune Messiah, which is the second book, which will be the
really
third.
Not great.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, Dune Messiah, that's going to be the Return of the King, and Denis Villeneuve is finally going to win all his Oscars. And I'm like, have you read Dune Messiah? This is weird. Like, there's some weird stuff that happens there.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited to see it. I'm excited to see how they do it, but I don't think people really understand what's going to happen in that movie.
I've intentionally wanted to kind of stay away from it.
Yeah, it's wild.
I haven't read even the first Dune book. I love the Dune movies. Absolutely love them. Loved the first one. Watched it 2 days in a row last year. Just like watched it one day. Woke up the next morning. I was like, you know what I want to watch again is Dune Part 1.
It's sick.
It's hard to put into words what is so good about it. It at this point feels weirdly like a cozy movie. It's like a comfort film for me, which is a strange thing to say.
Yeah.
The tone is pretty dark and brooding at times. But something about just especially the first parts of, I know we're not talking about Dune Part 1, but just, Oscar Isaac and Timothée Chalamet walking together and all that dialogue that they share. And I don't know, there's something that's become very like sentimental about it to me, even though it only came out a few years ago. I'm also going to talk about Dune Part 2. It'll be on my list a little bit later on.
Oh, nice. We should have saved it.
It's okay. And we'll get to bump fists in a little bit.
I'm sure we will.
Anything else you want to say about it for now?
I just think that what I liked about Dune Part 2, in addition to just how incredible it looks, it's spectacular to watch visually. It's absolutely insane. I mean, that opening scene when they're in the dunes and then they start flying you just think, oh my goodness. I watched it at the Universal City Walk IMAX, which is how you should watch every movie if you can. And it was so spectacular and breathtaking. Yeah. But I also love a movie that makes you think about a choice where there's not really a black and white. Paul Atreides is not that good of a guy. He's also not that bad of a guy. And so at the end of the movie, he's making a horrible choice. Is he going to go with the love of his life? Yeah. Or is he going to make a political marriage to try to avoid like millions of deaths? Yeah. And he still ends up starting a massive jihad either way. So Paul, like spoiler alert, I guess, it's like the opening pages
spoiler
of Dune Messiah. So, it's complicated. And I think that people usually don't like complication in their movies. I like complication in my movies. And so that to me is what makes Dune 2 stand out among just, a big CGI blockbuster is it actually has themes which are like, oh man, was Paul Atreides a hero or is he kind of the villain or what's going on here?
It feels like a great next step from, the Star Wars franchise or other big, more hero's journey oriented franchises. It feels like a fun evolution of that, where it's like the same scale, but a much more interesting story is being told with less defined character archetypes, or not less defined, less traditional character archetypes.
Well, I mean, Star Wars stole its plot from Dune. That's what everyone complains about. So it kind of took the complexity of Dune and then made it into like here's a good guy and here's a bad guy
narratively. Maybe I just need to think harder about it. One of the funny things for me about the whole Dune, like both Dune movies, is my kind of inability to understand the plot, despite loving them. Like it really is a very visceral experience for me, where I'm like, this looks and feels amazing, and that is what I like about those movies. The first time I watched Dune, I had no idea what happened, literally none. Saw it a second, third time, got it a little bit more. But to this day, I still am fuzzy on a lot of
the Bene Gesserit,
the plot mechanics and like what's going on.
Yeah.
So, whereas to me, especially like A New Hope, the beats are so clear.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Start with Luke, he encounters Obi-Wan, they go to the other planet, they find Han Solo and Millennium Falcon, and they go and destroy the Death Star. That's pretty much the whole movie.
Right. It's a classic like Messiah hero's journey story. And Dune is like what if the Messiah was actually the worst? Yeah. So yeah, it's exciting.
Okay, we'll circle back to Dune.
Okay, yeah, we'll come back to it.
My number 5 movie I saw on my birthday, also at Universal City Walk, and it was Sing Sing. I saw it. I think it did just come out, and I was like, I want to. Oh, and I took Sebastian Fernandez and my wife Sammy to see it.
You invited me.
I did.
And I was really sad that I couldn't go.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have had you. Had you seen it yet at that point?
No.
It was like fresh in theaters.
Yeah, and it was in theaters for like a week, and then it was gone, and then it was impossible to see.
What is with that?
I don't know. It's a horrible marketing, and it didn't get nominated for Best Picture, which I think is a real shame.
Yeah, I was kind of on the line there.
That's also on my list, so we'll talk about that.
Okay. I absolutely loved Sing Sing. I didn't tell Sam and Seb anything. I didn't even give them the title. I was like, we're going in blind to a movie. Seb, fortunately, was willing to trust me with that. And still, actually, just a few days ago, was mentioning to me how much he liked it. Had forgotten that he had seen it with me, actually. He was like, have you seen a movie called Sing Sing? Sorry, not to put Seb on blast. Sorry, Seb. He was like, have you seen this movie Sing Sing? Like, we watched that together on my birthday, holding hands. Not really. But yeah, we had a great time. And just very rewarding experience watching a movie. Very like I would say like just heartfelt and sweet characters that you're just rooting for. There's not a villain in it. There's not really like an antagonist. Like they're all kind of just battling through what it means to be in this place and like the opportunity that they've been given in this very special arena to get to process through some of their feelings. I think Coleman Domingo is just absolutely amazing. Love him. Is he nominated for Best Actor? I think he is.
He is.
He is. Yeah.
Rightfully so. Do you want to just briefly talk about the plot of the film?
Yes. It's been so long since I've seen it. This happens again with a lot of movies where the emotion sits with me and the visuals sit with me, but the actual like structure of the plot is not as memorable to me.
All right, you want me to go for it?
Do you want to?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I love this film. Okay. I was very nervous about watching it, and maybe when we get circle back, I can talk to you about why.
Okay. Yes,
it's about.
I remember you saying this.
Yeah, so it's basically about the Sing Sing prison, which I believe is in upstate New York.
Yes.
And it's about all these inmates that are in there, and they're participating in sort of a rehabilitative program that incorporates the arts and specifically theater to rehabilitate through art these inmates that are incarcerated for long periods of time for very significant crimes.
Yeah.
And so it's really just a story about that. Most of the actors, other than Coleman Domingo and I think one other actor, are portrayed by actual prisoners from Sing Sing that were incarcerated and did participate in this program.
Yeah.
And that, whether you want to call that a gimmick or not, I think it works super well in this movie because everyone is so phenomenal.
And just believable as who they are playing.
Right, because it's truly lived experience.
Totally.
And at the end of the film, they show actually some of the events depicted that did happen in real life. So it's based very closely on true events and actual people and characters. And I think that's really, really powerful.
Yeah, totally. What was the actual, because that I remember, what was the actual plot of the movie? Do you know what I mean? Like, what is the tension?
Well, I think the tension is that all the characters that you follow have, their own trauma from incarceration and also their own issues that resulted in incarceration, obviously. And sort of the interplay of personalities. There's a new prisoner that comes in and he is sort of taking a lead role, and Coleman Domingo's maybe feeling like he's being left out a little bit from the program, and he's also trying to get paroled and file all his papers. And so there's a lot of sort of that, but there's not a ton of, 3 acts of villain denouement, like all of those things. It's sort of just a story, and it's just really spectacular.
I just remember, I don't know, Coleman Domingo, some of just his line readings and performances, like his audition scene is really good. What is the name? There's another guy who comes in and takes is it Clarence Macklin?
Yeah.
Who comes in and takes the part that Coleman Domingo wanted. Great scene. His audition scene I really, really enjoyed. Anyway, all that to say, love Sing Sing, a movie I thought about a lot after. I don't know, just leaves you in a really hopeful place. A great birthday movie.
Yeah, really good.
We'll come back to it.
Well, I'll just say what I want to say now, and then I'll replace it with something else.
Okay.
Talk about something else. That's cool. I was nervous because based on my job, I'm in the law enforcement type of arena. And typically when you see movies about people who are incarcerated, it's always about how people who are incarcerated are victims of a broken system.
Yes.
And I think that can be very frustrating for me because while I obviously acknowledge that our justice system is not perfect, it's probably the best that we have around. And also a lot of people that are incarcerated are very deserving of being there. And when we send people to prison, it's usually in my case, it's always for a very good reason because they have victimized somebody else.
Yes.
And I think a lot of the times narratives when we talk about people who are incarcerated and the trials of being in prison really neglect to speak about the victimization that these people have often inflicted upon others. And I think that's really unfortunate. And I don't really understand that narrative very much because when I'm dealing with people who are survivors of violence or survivors of crime, you think about, well, what a closure do they have if this person is still out on the streets doing what they want to do?
Yeah.
And so I was really concerned that movie was going to take, like so many movies do, to take a very preachy standpoint about how incarceration is terrible and how the justice system is terrible and how all these people are innocent and they're just in here because, whatever, the system is broken or the system is racist or whatever it is. And that really does not happen in this film. Yeah. It does not really take a stance other than being in prison is not fun. And also there's joy to be found even in the little moments that you can find through the joy and service of others. And so to me, I found that to be very beautiful and very relieving and not feeling like I had to be preached at in a movie that was going to be attacking, part of my job. And it was done in such a heartwarming way that yeah, look, these people were in here for really serious, horrible things.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they're not redeemable.
Yeah.
And the movie really talks about like people can be redeemed, people can change, and people can find beauty from the ashes of their poor decisions as well. And I just thought that was a really beautiful thing about that movie.
It's being honest about where they're starting from. It doesn't deny the place that they're starting from, but that is true redemption, is being like real about the choices that led you to wherever you are, but then actually having an opportunity to have your story redeemed in whatever way that looks like. And in this case, it is through theater and through the arts. I think we had such a flat concept of kind of good guys and bad guys for so long that I think this is like a silly example, but it's the first time I can remember really seeing this in media. But it was the show Once Upon a Time. Did you watch Once Upon a Time?
It's a few
the
episodes.
ABC show. It felt like the cliche of the show was you met your heroes, but then you met the villain, right? But then 5 or 6 episodes in, you got the villain backstory that showed them being mistreated as a kid, and yada yada. It's just why you should feel sympathy for this person. But that would happen again and again and again, where it's like you bring in a new villain, they're bad, they're the villain for a little while, and then at some point we get the backstory of why. And I think there's value in that, of just recognizing like the world is hard. Our life experiences and what happens to us puts us in difficult situations, but that doesn't change the fact that people victimize other people. And to kind of overly elevate someone who has done evil things and is deserving of punishment, I think is not the solution. And I think Sing Sing does a really good job of kind of highlighting that.
Right. We're not vilifying, but we're also not putting on a pedestal people who have done really bad things, which I think is an appropriate way society should run.
There also, not to get too deep in this, but there also is just such a long era of like misaccused people in prison, which I think, I don't know, it affects how you think about all people in prison. But there are a lot of people that are, like you said, that are in prison that are there for a reason. Even if there are a small percentage that maybe are not, which is, I don't know, a hard thing to grapple with.
Yeah. It's not easy. It's nuanced, and I love that nuance can happen without being just preached at.
Yes, totally. Okay.
I think that was your number 5.
Oh, okay, great.
Was that your number 5?
Yeah.
Wow.
You're up.
That was my number 2.
Number 4.
Man, okay. What do I want to do here? I think that I'm going to shout out a movie that I really liked that I feel like nobody has probably seen.
Okay.
And it's a Japanese film by Ryusuke Hamaguchi, who directed Drive My Car, that got nominated for Best Picture.
That. Guess what year that came out in? 2021.
Yeah.
So I saw that.
It was a good movie.
Yeah.
And it's called Evil Does Not Exist.
Okay.
And it's a very strange movie, but it is so beautiful, and it's really contemplative, and it's really wonderful. And basically it takes place in Japan, in a very small kind of farm area of Japan, and there's a very close-knit, very small community, and a company is coming in, and they want to create a glamping site in the middle of this town that will boost tourism and all of these things, and the townspeople are really upset about this happening. And so the first half of the movie kind of feels like HOA meeting, the movie.
Okay.
So it's a lot of meetings and talking about like plans and things like that, but it's so much deeper because it really grapples with the question of, does evil exist? Is it something that's thrust upon you? Is it circumstantial? Is it based on what's your environment and what's going on around you? Is life random? Is it planned? Is there destiny? All of these things.
Yeah.
And just a very, very beautiful movie. And so I get that's a weird choice, but I watched it and I thought, man, and I've thought about it so much since I watched it. So
that's great.
I'm going to put that as my number 4 because it was
I could
awesome.
engage with you about it. I would love to watch it. All I have to say is I love Japan. I think it's my favorite country, actually.
It's my favorite place in the world.
You've been.
I have.
We've talked about this. Yeah. Well, how long ago?
I was there last year, and I was there like 9 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping to go back this year.
It's the only other country I've been to that I really feel like I could live in and like enjoy it. There's just an order there to kind of everything that I don't know. I appreciate.
Yeah, it's the best.
Just like the flow of life there. I know there's some really dark stuff kind of in the undercurrent, but I don't know.
It's a very spiritually closed country, which is very sad.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful, and the people are very nice, and the food is really unbelievable.
Beautiful, really beautiful country. Yeah. I got to take the bullet train down to Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Oh, sick.
And just like, I don't know, getting to ride that, getting to see the countryside, like getting to see like kind of the more rural parts of it. Really special. But anyway, that's not about this movie, but that is about Japan.
Yeah, I think it's hard, as a Christian, I love movies, but I love Jesus more. And so I think when I watch movies, I'm not necessarily looking to have my faith validated or things like that, but movies that tackle concepts of evil or messiahs or any of these things really resonate with me because I think about, well, this is from this person's worldview and maybe they know or maybe they don't know. And so I love to think about those through that lens, not to over spiritualize my movie watching because I don't at all. I like to have fun, but the ones that usually stick with me are the ones that made me think about like evil as a concept and something like that. So if you're interested in that type of thing, I would really recommend this movie to you.
Yeah, I'll add it to my watch list.
It's really wonderful.
It sounds like a horror movie title.
It's not.
Evil does not exist.
It is.
You know?
It is not.
Yeah. Okay, my number 4 is a little Alex Garland movie called Civil War.
Nice.
I loved Civil War. I don't even know what you thought about Civil War. Is it going to come up for you?
No.
It's on your like.
It's on my long list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed this movie. Talk about to me, this is a satisfyingly unsatisfying ending. So it's like the ending of it, it's not your Hollywood fairy tale ending, but the way in which it ends, kind of given everything that's come before, kind of that like anticlimactic downbeat, I really, really liked and was thinking about it for a long time. And I think there's a lot of different ways you can evaluate movies. And I think one that is often useful is how much did you think about this after you finished watching it?
Oh, yeah.
I thought about this movie for months, and it still kind of crosses my mind. Premise of the movie. It's about a civil war in our country. Great timing, Hollywood. Just thanks for putting out a movie called Civil War right in the middle of 2024. But it's civil war in our country. My assumption was this was going to be a deeply political movie. There are no politics in this movie.
None.
Pretty much whatsoever. I think by the end, you kind of get who Nick Offerman, what kind of figure he's portraying. But it's not explicit.
Sure.
And what is being fought over is not explicit. One of the themes of the movie that I really liked was as they're kind of driving through America on their way to Washington, D.C., they encounter a lot of different people who just kind of seem to be fighting for fighting's sake, like aren't really fighting for anything particular. They have one encounter with these people shooting at somebody in a house, and they're like, why are you shooting at them? It's like, well, because they're shooting at us. And that's it, you know? And like they encounter a lot of figures. Jesse Plemons plays a terrifying character in this movie. Really intense scene. Like that scene is probably the reason I haven't showed it to Sam yet. Like this is a very intense movie. I don't know if it's rated R, but it has kind of rated R levels of violence.
Certainly
in it.
is, yeah.
And so just left me. And then a really great example of like kind of a small-ish budget movie having really big and exciting set pieces that kind of storming is that the Capitol or the White House? The White House that they're going into at the end. Was just riveting. Like, it was gripping. I love Kaylee Spaney. I love Kirsten Dunst.
Oh, yeah. Kiki.
Yeah. Kiki. Stephen McKinley Henderson. Oh, my gosh. Big fan of him. And Nick Offerman is probably spent about 3 days shooting this movie, to be honest. I think he has like one scene at the beginning and one scene at the end. But it's like just a great, like, menacing president figure. I don't know, aesthetically cool. So it's basically following journalists that are covering this war that has broken out, and they're kind of right there on the front lines. A lot of sequences where there's guys shooting guns, and they're the kind of the metaphor of like them shooting photos of them shooting guns, and kind of like the media's involvement in war in our country. I think is an interesting idea in the movie too, but just could not stop thinking about it and. Yeah, for weeks on end.
Oh, yeah.
So you like this movie?
I loved it. I loved it. Yeah. What I loved about it is I saw it with 5 friends, and then after the movie, I always say, "Okay, everyone rate that on a scale of 1 to 5."
Yeah.
And there were some 1s, and there were some 3s,
wow,
and there were some 5s.
Yeah.
And it was crazy because it is so polarizing.
Yeah.
But it is such a visceral experience to watch in a movie theater. It's so loud. Yeah. It's so in your face. It's so intense for 2 hours. Yeah. It is really a spectacular movie, and I've thought about it a lot as well. And I want to watch it again. I've only seen it once.
I think at the time it was the biggest budget A24 movie. Like it kind of marked, I think, A24's move into bigger budget efforts, and so hopefully that goes well for them.
I've been a big fan of Alex Garland too. Yeah. I know Men, controversial movie.
I didn't see it. A little too eerie for me.
Yeah, but he's Annihilation was an Alex Garland movie. It was really good, and then Ex Machina, which everyone loves. Yeah. So he's just making some really cool stuff, and I'm excited to see kind of where he goes next.
He hasn't made as many movies as I thought he'd made.
I think he's directed 4 movies.
4 feature
He's
films.
written a lot. He's written a lot with Danny Boyle. I think he wrote the 28 Days Later movies, and
He's working on the 28 Years Later movie later this year, which will be exciting. Anyway, that was Civil War. I loved it so much I want to say more about it. I can't think of anything else to say about it right now, but it just cool concept, cool aesthetic, cool vibe. Just loved it all around. So that's my number 4.
My number 3, I'm going to disclaim a little bit.
Okay.
I thought it was really spectacular. Yeah. It's one of the movies that I think it's the movie I watched most this year because I've been most excited to watch it with other people to watch their reactions.
Yeah.
I will say that it is gratuitous in every way that you can kind of think of.
Okay.
And I think it's intentional. Although, as someone who, I feel like some of the gratuity is unnecessary and sort of undercuts its message.
Well, definitionally, that is gratuity. So, like, what do you really mean by gratuity?
Well, let's say that. So the movie is The Substance.
Yes.
And this basically the plot of The Substance is there is a aging actress who was once at her prime and the top of her game and the go-to it girl in Hollywood who is now aging out. And you can see her insecurity mounting as she realizes that she is being edged out of her roles and her production and her value to really what she has put her most value in which is her career.
Yeah.
It's very sad to watch that. And she has the opportunity to take The Substance, which is a serum that allows you to basically replicate yourself to create a second version of yourself that is younger, better, hotter, more effective, like basically the better you.
It's a it's like a clone.
It is sort of a clone, but the weird twist is that the clone is awake for 1 week and then asleep for 1 week. So you switch off week by week, and the switch has to be respected or horrible things happen. And obviously, spoiler alert, horrible things begin to happen when the substance is not respected.
I didn't understand that was part of it.
And the movie is not remotely subtle. And it is about Hollywood, and it is a satire, and it's talking about how women are objectified and how Hollywood treats women and how people are obsessed with beauty and how people are willing to sacrifice pieces of themselves just to hold on to that ideal, that physical ideal of what success is and all those things. So in that sense, there is quite a bit of nudity in the film. Not a lot of it's sexual nudity, but like we're talking about bodies and there's body stuff that's happening.
Yeah.
And so I think that, they're picking 2 very beautiful people to portray these roles. And so it's like, okay, well, you're kind of undercutting your message by ogling their bodies while being like, hey, it's not cool that you're ogling people's bodies.
Yeah.
So in that sense, that's, I think, sort of where the message gets undercut. But it is a really exciting movie.
Yeah.
The final 40 minutes are insane. They're very disgusting. It becomes very disgusting. It's actually one of only 7 horror movies to ever be nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah, and a pretty severe one from what I've heard. I have not seen this movie yet.
It's not scary. It's not remotely scary, but it's a body horror movie. So there's just a lot of things happening. There's viscera. There's blood. There's things that are very gross to watch. It's incredibly like over the top gratuitous.
Yeah, totally.
In like that area. So I disclaim that movie because it's obviously not for everybody, but I do like horror movies. It's really exciting to see it get the recognition it deserves. Margaret Qualley's amazing.
Yeah. And
why can't I think of her name right now? She's going to win.
She's
going to win Best Actress.
Yeah.
Demi Moore is incredible. And so that's the movie I've watched the most, I've thought about the most, and I've been like, hey, I agree with the fact that women are being objectified in a really unhealthy way in the film industry. And this movie shines a light on it while also kind of doing the same thing. So it's not like perfect, but it's really exciting.
Yeah. Good friend of mine, friend of the pod, Taylor Piercy, highly recommended it. And she's a Christian and a very just like faithful follower of Jesus, but also is very willing to consider these kinds of topics. And it sounds like, what is being considered in this movie is worth thinking about. So yeah, disclaimer, there's some nudity, there's some horrific elements.
There are.
But I think that I see Sam actually watched a trailer for the movie and was like, I want to see that. And the trailer obviously doesn't show kind of all the things that you're talking about, but I think just that premise I think is valuable and would be meaningful to a lot of people. So do with that what you will, friends. Okay, my 3rd favorite movie is Dune Part 2. Gosh, I love Dune Part 2 so much. I don't think I like it as much as Dune Part 1. I think I like Dune Part 1 better.
Whoa.
How would you, between the two, which would you take?
Dune Part 1, really good. Kind of boring. Hot take. Dune Part 2 is just like nonstop. I think Dune Part 2 is just a way better movie.
I can't deny that Dune Part 1 is a little boring, but I love it. Like, I don't know, there's so many iconic things that have become iconic to me, just visually. But anyway, Dune Part 2. is what I think people kind of were expecting going into Dune Part 1. If you are going to an action movie for action, like Dune Part 2 is going to be a lot more satisfying for you than Dune Part 1 was. Just some incredible set pieces. I don't know, everything with the sandworms, him riding the sandworm like battle at the end, the whole final set piece with kind of everything converging. Again,
it's unreal.
Don't fully understand. I mean, ultimately what is happening is the Fremen are attacking the Harkonnen base, basically. I think what is a little bit lost on me is the Christopher Walken, Florence Pugh political aspect and kind of who they are and what their motivations are. Like, that's the part that I don't totally get. It is easy for me to understand Fremen good, Harkonnens bad.
Well, it's interesting because maybe that will change. Dune Messiah.
Yeah.
He's all about the spice, man. Just gotta get that. Gotta get that spice.
Yeah. These movies look sick. This is not the first time we'll be talking about Timothée Chalamet, but I love Timothée Chalamet. Love me some Zendaya. And just the two of them together, kind of their romantic. It's like this is our Titanic moment to me. I think for this generation of them in the sand dunes. That sweeping, just the fact that like so much of this was shot on location, the sweeping camera shots of just those amazing like scenic like views. That opening scene again, where it's so funny. I've heard so many people reference this scene. The opening scene where they just kind of like the guys start floating, right? Why is that so cool?
It's sick. It's just like, oh, these are dudes walking on the sand. Oh, now they're flying in the air. You just don't expect it. I think what it is, this is, not to get off topic, but what Dune did so well, and I think we just don't see it anymore, is it built a world with visuals that we haven't seen before. Because if you think about most of the big budget IP, it's sequels to things we've seen before, or it's big Disney movies that all have the same production designers and they all kind of look the same and kind of garbage. Yeah. And so we saw something new that we hadn't seen before. And I think that scene was like, oh, this is what we've seen in Dune Part 1, and now people are flying with jetpacks, and it just really fired me up.
Original... Yeah, fully original, but with a big budget, which a lot of times you don't get that same originality. It's like the bigger the budget, the less originality.
Right.
And Dune is just kind of a rare movie that subverts that completely. Where like, I don't know what the budget is, probably like 200, 300 million. Like it's got to be a lot.
I think it was less. I think that's the whole thing. It's like how did they make that movie for as little as they did when the other movies that have twice the budget look as bad as they do?
I mean, shout out to them if that's the case, because it really is just like great craftspeople that's working on it.
It's unbelievable.
Hans Zimmer's score, it's always going to be a good Hans Zimmer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not eligible for an Oscar this year because it's too much.
Sequel. Yeah.
He won his second ever Oscar for score. Hans Zimmer scored like the best movies of all time, best scores of all time, other than John Williams. Let's not be crazy.
He really is the heir to the kind of the John Williams.
Do you know what his first Oscar win was? Hans Zimmer.
Oh golly!
Before Dune Part 1.
Inception.
No.
Was it a Christopher Nolan movie?
No. Older.
Oh gosh. Oh, Lion King.
Yeah.
Hey, I got it.
Yeah, nice.
Cool. Okay, that's awesome. All this to say, love Dune Part 2. Great performances.
It's great.
Javier Bardem gets to cook a lot more in this movie than he did in Dune Part 1. Dune Part 1, he kind of just has one, maybe two scenes and he is kind of this like mysterious figure. The fact that he kind of gets to become, in some ways, the audience avatar in this movie a little bit, where it's kind of not breaking the fourth wall, but breaking the energy. Everything's everything's so serious, and just him bringing a little bit of brevity is like a lot of fun. I don't mean brevity, I mean just lightness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because if you haven't read the book, Chani, Zendaya's character, is barely in Dune Part 1. Just have her like blue eyes and the wind blowing around.
Yeah.
She's a big central character, and they kind of at the end make it Chani's movie because spoiler alert,
ends on her face.
Yeah, it ends on her face, and it's kind of like, oh boy, what's going to happen now?
Yeah,
isn't that really in Dune Messiah? So I don't know what they're going to do about that.
Change it
because I feel like they can't push her to the side like they do in that book. So it's going to be really interesting.
To me, I could be wrong. I don't know why you end your movie that way if you're going to just shuttle her off. Well, in the next one.
Well, she's not that central in Dune either. I mean, she's a big part, but they made Dune basically like, here's the love story of a generation. It's not really like that. So it's really, I liked it. I thought that was actually a really good change from the book because it made it more relatable and fun and exciting. Yeah. But it'll be really interesting to see what they do next.
Yeah. Timothée Chalamet is amazing. The scene when he goes into the, I don't have all my pronouns, but like, or not pronouns, proper nouns. The like, I don't know, the space where they're all kind of worshiping towards the center, and he gets up and
Church?
just kind of clean. Church, yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
It's like a little steeple. What do you call that? No, when he goes in and just kind of takes over that room, like, wow. He's so good. And he's so slight in his just kind of demeanor and presence most of the time. It's the first time I've seen him really kind of have that like lion's roar of a moment that I kind of didn't think that he was capable of. And so I think that was pretty special. His interplay with Zendaya kind of going into those scenes of her becoming more suspicious, kind of just the general suspicion around religion in this movie of like the younger Fremen that are like not as on board with the idea of Messiah, the older ones kind of being more reverent. Like, I don't know, there's some interesting themes there. But yeah, I think Dune Part 2 rocked. I really want Dune Messiah to be like, I want it to like win Best Picture. I want it to be like the Return of the King moment for this franchise, and it might not happen.
The thing is, I liked the book a lot. I liked it way. I enjoyed Dune Messiah way more than I enjoyed Dune.
Oh, okay.
It's like a third of the length, which I think was helpful. But man, it is not a crowd pleaser, I would say.
The book
is certainly not.
Yeah. Your number 2.
My number 2 is Sing Sing.
Okay,
so great. I think we covered Sing Sing.
Yeah.
So I could shout out something else if you want me to, or we could just move to your number 1.
We'll do wild cards in a bit.
Okay.
Or no, my number 2.
Oh yeah, your number 2.
I wanted to talk about this. My number 1 and number 2. I was thinking recently about how on Letterboxd, I kind of wish I don't think this actually makes any sense. I think we should just kind of be like objective in our evaluation of things. But I was like, man, I want like an objective meter and kind of like a personal favorite meter.
Sure.
You know, there's so many movies, especially when I kind of go to see these like great classics of like Hollywood, and they just don't resonate in the same way. Like, I don't know, kind of embarrassing to me, but like The Godfather, I went to see it like in theaters, and I was like, that was impressive. I don't think about it that much. You know what I mean?
It's disappointing.
Like, I'm sorry. I just don't.
No, it's fair.
Yeah, it's like, wow, what a great, I don't know, recognizing its place in Hollywood history is fun. Like all that is I don't know, exciting to me, and I like thinking about that stuff. But I don't have a warm like connection to The Godfather where I like think about it regularly. I don't know, just one example of I could throw out others. But anyway, all this to say, the personal taste, and then there's kind of like what you think is objectively great. I decided to go for my number 1 with kind of like my personal taste movie.
I love that.
My number 1 movie, I'm not going to say yet, is a me movie. If nobody else likes this movie, I don't care. I don't need them to. I'm just like, this made me really happy. My number 2 movie that I'm about to talk about, I think is like a 5-star movie, and it's The Wild Robot. Okay. I really liked The Wild Robot. Everybody was saying good things about it. My friend Mauricio had highly recommended it. He gave it 5 stars. Talked to his favorite movie of the year. I was like, man, I guess we got to check this out. Watched it with Sam on Christmas Eve up in Washington with her grandparents, who raised her, and so just kind of a very like sweet like place to be watching a movie in. It starts, and it had that thing. You know the thing when you watch like a Pixar short where there's no dialogue, you're just kind of watching something happen, and within like 2 minutes you just love the characters, and you just are like kind of bought into whatever's going on, and like it just that kind of like speed of like, oh my gosh, I already care. Like, how do I already care about this robot? How do I already care about these animals? And then it just kept that energy going the entire time, where it's not a complicated plot. We're kind of like we were talking about the speed of movies like Sonic the Hedgehog, or any of those kind of like kids popcorn movies, I would say.
Yeah.
It doesn't have that. It's a lot more slow paced, but interesting things are still happening. You're able to kind of track with like just a very singular, simple like narrative thread, and the stakes kind of keep changing as you go in a way like you just like, I've never been so kind of fixated and excited to see what was going to happen next for the characters that we were meeting, and like everything was surprising and just joyful, and like, I don't know, like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that to happen. Now what's going to happen in this little world. So and then Sam's just crying the entire time. Like it is a brutal movie about motherhood. Not as many movies about motherhood as there are about fatherhood, I think. Yeah. And so just that theme of like creating connection to someone that you've helped nurture and grow, I think was resonant for me and Sam, right now in our lives. And I don't know, it was just a really, really sweet time. What do you think of The Wild Robot?
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought it was so beautiful. I was like crying the whole time as well. I think just the concept of giving yourself in every capacity to serve somebody else is something that we don't really talk about in our society, because one, we don't prioritize that, and two, it's really uncomfortable and hard to do. And so now you have an android robot who is basically designed to serve, and then gets put in a situation where they are serving, and the cost of that service, but the beauty of that service as well. And then the motherhood aspect, I think you're right. We don't see a lot of movies about motherhood, which is probably because we don't have a lot of female filmmakers that are making movies about that topic. I know, like Night Bitch came out this year. I don't know if you saw that film. Nope. It was a pretty brutal movie about motherhood. Yeah. Something that you don't really see on screen. I didn't think that movie was great, but it definitely portrayed something that you don't often see. And the Wild Robot, I mean, the score is beautiful. The animation is beautiful.
Oh, the score. Yeah. The one thing that threw me off was that one kind of song, the song that is nominated for Best Song at the Oscars in the middle of the movie, felt very dated to me. And I've heard people talk about it with a lot of affection, and it felt like a song you'd hear in the middle of, like, I don't know, a movie like Bolt, or like that kind of like...
Just coming out of the gate at Bolt. Shots fired.
Bolt's a great movie. It felt, I don't know, felt a little dated to me.
I don't remember it.
Yeah.
So I can't speak to it.
It's just that kind of like, and I'm not disparaging any of these things, like acoustic, whimsical, major key, like rousing anthem. I was like, we've been here before. This feels like new, but not new. It's my only, one of my only notes about the movie. But it ends in this amazing sequence of her, like the bird finally flying, And so, is it a bird?
It's a bird.
It is a bird.
It's a duck, right? A goose. He's a goose. A duck? A goose?
Yeah, Brightbill.
Yeah.
Brightbill, the little bird.
I tried reading the book and I couldn't really get into it.
Yeah. I didn't read the book.
It's based on a book. There's a whole series of books, so I'm anticipating a lot more. Do you think it's going to win Best Picture? Or you think it's going to lose to Flow? Did you see Flow?
I think it is going to lose to Flow.
I think it's going to lose to Flow.
Really like
Flow's pretty great.
Didn't see Flow.
You should watch it. It's
the
great.
cat versus the bird this year at the Oscars.
I know. It's crazy.
What is it a goose? Hang on.
It is a goose. It's a
baby
duck.
Goose.
Yeah.
Baby goose. Yeah.
It's a waterfowl of some kind.
And Roz, played by Lupita Nyong'o. Anyway.
Fantastic vocal performance
really
as well.
Good.
Yeah.
Really good.
That's a great pick.
And just beautifully animated. Like, again, like, just very fresh. It kind of, I don't know, lots of movies in recent years, I think since Spider-Verse, have had that kind of flatter but still more dynamic look to them. Like, kind of almost like, I hate to say paper mache. There's just like a tactileness to it that I think Pixar, really never had. That kind of like computer animated sheen. Mitchell's versus the Machines. Like there's been some movies in the past few years that have just had, I don't know, a little more.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Out of the Shadows.
That's another good one. Yeah.
Is that what it's called? Something like that.
I don't remember what the subtitle was, but whatever that movie was. Anyway, just beautifully animated, beautiful movie all around. Chris Sanders, who directed my wife's favorite movie, Lilo and Stitch. And How to Train Your Dragon, which is incredible.
Oh man, so good.
Oh boy, we got a visitor. It's Christian Fernandez. Hello. Welcome to the podcast.
What's up?
Do you want to be on? We are on camera.
We're on camera?
What was here? Actually, no, for real. What was your favorite movie of 2024?
Alien Romulus.
No, that would not be it.
Do you want to see a list of 2024?
Yes, that's what I need.
Was it Smile Part 2?
I did not see that one. Okay. Okay, I got a contender. I'm not going to say it yet, though.
Joker Folia Dude?
Didn't see
I did not watch that.
Monkey Man?
I saw that.
Mean Girls.
Didn't love it.
I didn't. Tell us. It's okay. Juror number 2?
It's Wicked.
Is it Wicked? Is it Madam Web?
It's Madam Web.
No. Hedgehog 3? We're getting into some garbage now.
Oh, my gosh. Are they? What are these ranked from?
This is just like popularity on Letterboxd.
Oh, Argyle's up there. No.
The Beekeeper? Did you see The Beekeeper?
I never
Beekeeper
saw
was
Beekeeper.
great.
I'm keeping all of them.
All right. This is kind of crazy to say. I know what I pick.
Is it the movie you saw?
Wait, hold on. Yeah. It's Civil War.
Hey, that was on my list.
It's Civil War. Yeah. This is a hard watch, but
yeah.
it had us thinking a lot. So I think that was my favorite.
I watched it with you.
Yep.
It was great.
It was really good. And everybody else that we watched it despised it every second of it.
Which made our victory so much sweeter.
Who gave it 1 star?
I'm not gonna name names. Snitches get stitches, bro.
Yeah. Oh, or no. You know what? Also, I could have to give it to Bad Boys as well.
Man.
Because yeah,
Bad Boys for life.
Bad Boys for life.
Bad Boys like no.
Is there another Bad Boys movie?
Ride or Die. Right? Was it Ride or Die?
Yeah, because we walked out of the theater and Will Smith was there.
Just notable, really great guy.
Yep, really great guy. He slapped me. All right.
Thanks for stopping by, Christian. Recording a pod.
See you, buddy.
See you tomorrow. Maybe even tonight. Who knows?
Wow.
Yeah. Christian Fernandez, everybody. What a treat.
Love that guy.
I think I just finished talking about The Wild Robot, right?
I think you did.
Okay, what's your number one?
All right. This is going to
movie?
be deeply controversial. This is a movie that you hated, and you texted me immediately after watching saying that you thought it was bad. But this is the movie that I have not stopped thinking about since I watched it, and it absolutely destroyed me in the movie theaters.
Yeah.
And I thought it was very risky, very bold.
Okay.
Did not always pay off.
Okay.
But if it did, it really hit for me. I think this is one of those movies that you either give like 2 stars or 5 stars. I don't think there's any middle ground.
Yeah.
The movie is Here.
Oh,
which
I thought you were going to say juror number 2. I really thought you were going to say juror number. Okay,
No.
Here. Got it. Wow. Okay, yes.
Yeah. Here is something that I don't love, which I would call a gimmick movie.
Yes.
So
100%.
it takes place over hundreds of years with a camera that is set in a fixed position.
Yes.
Like if the podcast camera didn't move and this location just changed over years and years and years.
Yeah.
So it has things from Native America. It has things from the Revolutionary War. It has the inventor of the Lazy Boy. It has a World War I type pilot, or right aviation becomes a thing in the 1900s. And then it has some stuff that happens in 2020, which is just unspeakably terrible.
Yep.
But the central story follows Tom Hanks, his character, as he grows up in his parents' home, and just the journey of him growing up from becoming a teenager to becoming a young husband to becoming a young father, to watching his parents, age and him age over time, and realizing that he's not always getting what he wants, and the joys and the sadnesses of his life, as he's just kind of progressing through as you're watching from this fixed camera view.
Yeah.
And I recognize that this movie did not work for most people, and I think it's a real shame, because I think there is so much beauty in this movie, and there's so much reality in it, and something that you don't see in cinema.
Yeah.
Where this movie is not a happy movie. You see a lot of movies about the American dream and a happy ending, and we get the girl and we get the white picket fence and all these things, which aren't necessarily reality for most people.
Yeah.
And so watching that portrayed on screen in such a heartfelt and emotional and really, such a hard on its sleeve way, where it's almost like so cloying and so saccharine that you're just like, oh my gosh, like you are just manipulating the crap out of me right now to get me to start weeping. It really worked for me.
Yeah.
And I found it to be just absolutely beautiful. And I think that in several years, people are going to look back and be like, why did we hate that movie? Because it actually kind of rules.
Yeah.
And it's an odd movie. It's very strange, but I think it's wonderful.
Yeah.
So I know you had a very, very different take on that film.
I've got a lot to say. I think the idea is so compelling, is so interesting, and the kind of thing that I would really be normally very, like, I don't know, excited by. Like when I heard the premise, I was like, that's a cool idea for a movie. I think I shared with you over text. I think about that kind of thing all the time. I love old buildings. A couple years ago, my wife and I stayed in a hotel in San Diego that was like 100 years old and had been like remodeled and looked like a modern hotel. On the inside, on the outside, it had a lot of the same facades and kind of architecture that it did back in the 20s. And in the hotel, in the lobby, there's a photo of that hotel in the 20s. And there's like a little like newspaper boy like standing in front of it. That kind of thing is so exciting and makes me feel, I don't know, such a specific thing. And so I don't know, just like a sense of kind of wonder and like nostalgia and kind of heartache and I don't know, just all those things. Just when we think about the passing of time, our moment to get to be on the earth in any given place and what we get to contribute while we're here. So that is very resonant to me. I think for me, there haven't been, it's not very often. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm being mean about this movie that you just said that you love.
That's okay.
There's not many movies I while I'm watching it, I'm thinking I could have done so much better with this. Usually I'm like, if I can't make movies. I don't know how to make movies. Like, I'm not a director. Like, so I don't usually have that kind of thought. But I think it was because I was like, this is so cool. Like, this is such a cool idea. And I think my number one change that I would have made was just narrowed it in on like 3 generations living in a house. I think that is more than enough to communicate the idea that you're going for. Starting with the dinosaurs and like it's cool. It's cool, but I think it made it feel like looking in kind of a like a national what's it called, natural history museum, like diorama. Kind of like it removed me kind of from everything that was happening with the Tom Hanks and Robin Wright character, because it made them feel like dinosaurs. Ooh, that's kind of a good way to put it. It made them feel like kind of these like dusty kind of, I don't know, creatures of the past, rather than like real living, breathing people right in front of me. That said, it's an amazing technical feat. Like, I actually don't know how they did this, because I don't think it's as simple as just setting up a tripod and being like, let's tear the house down now. Like, I think a lot of thought went in, because obviously this was shot in multiple locations, you know, like the all the Revolutionary War, like the kind of forest setting, right? It's like that is in a different place. I did notice, like, you know, a lot of attention given to like the tree and kind of where the tree is over time, and where the TV is kept over time, and kind of the TV changing throughout the generations. Did you see this in the theater?
I did.
I wish I had watched it.
Yeah, I think that would have made a huge difference. It is available on Netflix right now, so I really do recommend that people watch it.
I watched it on Netflix. I watched it, paused it, got in the bathroom, get a food, you know, there was a glare. It's just my or my MacBook screen.
No,
like,
see,
I think being forced to kind of stare, to like look at it, and kind of like, even if you do get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the movie, which I pretty much always have to do, you're sitting there for this. You're being confronted with kind of staring at this one place on the earth for that long in a dark room with other people around. I think probably would have been a pretty special experience.
I mean, it's weird, right? Because this movie did not work for a lot of people. It was an epic flop. It got no awards discussion at all. I mean, it's Robert Zemeckis reuniting Tom Hanks and Robin Wright, the team that made Forrest Gump, which obviously won Best Picture and is acclaimed as one of the best movies of all time.
Yeah.
People in the movie theater were laughing. Like, this is real. They some of the things that were happening were so ridiculous that people were just completely out of the movie, that unintentionally funny scenes were being laughed
unintentional
at.
comedy, as they call it on the rewatchables.
Yeah. So in that sense, I get it. I don't fault anybody for being like, this did not work for me.
Yeah.
I do think that seeing it in a theater was super meaningful. And I think, depending on, you know, it's weird because it's like there's movies that I watched as a kid that were like, this is life changing. I watch it now, I was like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
And this one, I think, hit me at a stage in life where I'm sort of going alongside a lot of the beats that Tom Hanks's character is going around.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't, because you watch a movie about a character that's sympathetic and you like, and you think, oh, everything's going to work out and it's going to be a happy ending. And that's usually how most Hollywood movies go.
Yeah.
And then to see it being like, oh, this is what you thought was going to happen, it actually didn't, because real life doesn't work out like that. And that really wrecked me, because it's true.
Yeah.
And so I think there's so much more honesty in here than people gave it credit for. And I wonder if it hadn't been as gimmicky, or the single, you know, fixed perspective thing, if it would have been treated a little bit better. I don't know.
To me, that's the best thing it has going for it. It's like, that is an idea.
So I don't know. It really worked for me. I acknowledge that it didn't work for the 17 other people that watched it in movie theaters.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was great.
You're in good company with two of our heroes, Sean Fennessy and Adam Naiman. Both have it really high on their list for 2024. So I don't know. It's always it's kind of exciting whenever there's a movie that really people kind of are like missing each other on. I should show this to Sam. I really wonder what Sam, because she's not as cynical as I am about kind of like, I don't know, screenwriting, like, or whatever. And so she might. It might be nice to watch it again with her and kind of have more of an open heart to it. I feel like I had an open enough. Maybe, who knows? We'll see.
I don't know. Like, try it again.
Yeah.
I think everyone should watch it. It's fantastic.
It's a great movie rec. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if especially, you know, for someone of an older generation, if you're like, hey, like, if they ask you like, hey, what's good from this past year?
I'm just kidding.
What's good from this past year? If you say here, like, you're probably like,
it's a dad movie for sure.
It's very dad.
Like, it's a huge dad movie.
I mean, Tom Hanks, the ultimate dad.
Truly.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So excited to talk about my favorite movie of the year.
Hit me with your number one.
Like I said, I don't need everybody to love this movie. I actually can't believe how much I love this movie. I just wasn't expecting it. So it's a complete unknown, starring Timothée Chalamet portraying Bob Dylan.
Great.
I liked this movie a lot. From the first moment I saw it, like from the moment I don't know, like half an hour in, I just was mesmerized. Okay, well, so I came out of the movie being like, am I a Bob Dylan fan? Because I was not raised on Bob Dylan. My dad likes Bob Dylan, but I don't really know anything about Bob Dylan. I probably know like 3 songs that he has done. So I wasn't a Bob Dylan fan. I came out of the movie being like, am I a Bob Dylan fan? Am I going to like suddenly, is this my entry point to getting into Bob Dylan? I realized what I love is Timothée Chalamet. And I was truly amazed by this performance in a music biopic, which have historically been awful. Like, we've had so many bad music biopics over the last, 5 to Bohemian Rhapsody years. This one I thought worked. I think him as Bob Dylan is rises above the kind of like, I don't know, the like Saturday Night Live kind of like caricature of a famous person, and feels more like a real fleshed out character that he is bringing his own original perspective to. He's incredible in it. Melissa Barbaro is incredible in it. Elle Fanning's great in it. I love Ed Norton. Ed Norton is incredible in it. And just the fact that they really did learn to play and perform as these icons of music history is really, really incredible. And the fact that so much of the movie, there's so many full performances in this movie. They do the full blowing in the wind, like, verse, chorus. Like, they do the entire song, and that's true of a lot of the songs in the movie. Whereas I think in movies like Rocketman or Bohemian Rhapsody, you kind of just get a little piece of this and a little piece of this because it's not real. And the longer you spend looking at it, the more you're going to be able to see that it's not real. This is real. It like, whether or not they did, it was overdubbed later, or if they kind of cleaned things up in post, like, I don't know. But just viscerally sitting watching it, it really feels like you're in the room with them. It feels like they're actually playing, like they're actually singing. I don't know if that could be attributed to the sound mix or what, but it feels authentic in a way. We just yesterday, Sam put on the scene from Marriage Story where Adam Driver sings the song from the end of Company. And that's just him authentically singing in that moment. And I was just like, man, I love when people sing and sound real in movies, Yeah. We'll get to Wicked in just a sec. But yeah, so I went and saw this movie again in theaters, and it is just so sweet and special to me. I don't think it's a 5-star movie, but it's in the Joey Hall of Fame now. I've been listening to the soundtrack for ever since I watched it. Saw it on January 1st of this year, and just haven't been able to stop thinking about it since.
I love it.
Any thoughts on The Complete Unknown?
I liked it.
Yeah.
I thought it was good. I thought Timothée Chalamet was great. I don't really care about Bob Dylan, musically or whatever, but it made me think, oh, maybe I do like Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
I think it was really interesting because directed by James Mangold, who directed Walk the Line, and Boyd Holbrook plays Johnny Cash in this film, which was portrayed by Joaquin Phoenix in Walk the Line.
Yeah.
I recently rewatched Walk the Line, and I thought, that's not as good as I remembered. Yeah. I thought this was a great movie. I it was effective. It's not really a movie that I ever thought about again. I probably will never watch it again, but I didn't have a bad time watching it, and I thought it was very impressive. And Timothée Chalamet, I mean, is he just like the new biggest movie star of all time?
It's kind of him.
Yeah.
I don't know
who else do we have?
Yeah.
So
it's not Tom Holland. It's not right now.
Certainly not. It's very bad. So yeah, I think it's a great pick. And I love, it's kind of like here. It's like, I love to watch a movie that it doesn't matter what other people think. I mean, this movie's nominated for Best Picture, so people clearly like this movie. But the fact that because I think movie watching is very subjective, and it's very important to how it's resonating with you and telling a story. And we're storytellers. That's how we're created, to tell stories and to pass stories along. And so the stories that resonate are going to be the ones that are the most meaningful to us. So I have no criticism of your pick, even though you criticized my pick.
I did, out the wazoo.
Uncontrollably.
Okay, it's time for let's just talk about some movies. What else? Speed round. What else did you see and think about a lot this year?
Okay, so a movie I'm going to shout out because I think it's great, and I don't think anybody saw it. It's on Netflix. It's called It's What's Inside, which also sounds like a horror movie. It's not. It's sort of like a psychological thriller sci-fi movie, but it's super low budget. Just a brand new director, his debut movie, and it's super fun. Basic premise, because I don't want to spoil anything, because I feel like everybody should watch it.
Yeah.
There's some bad language in the movie, but I think other than that, it's fairly tame.
Yeah.
Several friends from the past reunite at a large house for a wedding weekend sort of bachelorette party.
Yeah.
And then somebody brings a mysterious suitcase, and events begin to unfold that really take things in a direction I have not seen in a movie before. Yeah. And it really excited me. And I showed it to a coworker, and her mind was blown. And it's really fun, and it's really surprising. It's really unexpected. And I didn't really watch anything else like it this year. And I thought it was great. So it's my big shout out.
Michael, I'm delighted to tell you I finished it an hour before you got
here. No way.
It was incredible. It was so good.
Oh, that really makes me happy.
I couldn't believe it. I love social media in movies when it's done well, and I think it's because it can so often be done terribly, like truly offensively. There's an opening sequence involving social media, and it kind of recurs throughout the movie that was just unbelievable. Can we spoil it a little bit? Can we talk about it a little?
I mean,
can I give a spoiler warning?
Yeah, that's fine.
Jump ahead 4 to 5 minutes in the podcast. I want to spend a second.
5 minutes. Let's go.
3 minutes.
Okay.
This movie rules. It reminded me, I love when a movie can take kind of things we've seen before and present them in a fresh and new way. And so this movie reminded me a lot, being John Malkovich, big influence on this movie, I think. Freaky Friday, spoilers. What else? Even a movie like Palm Springs.
Yeah.
Where it's like
Ingrid Goes West. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
It's really good.
Yeah. Palm Springs is a great example because it's like we've done caught in a time loop movies before, but this is a new twist where it's like she gets caught in it with him. So it's like this is a fresh take on kind of an old idea, really creatively presented, and executed.
I mean, if we're spoiling it, there's a body swap element to it, which is pretty unbelievable. Yes. And just, it really kind of thinks like, oh my gosh, what would happen to me in this situation? Yeah. But the way that the filmmaker is able to help you follow on a very convoluted body swap.
Yes.
Premise is pretty impressive. Yes. Like filmmaking alone, even if you're like, oh, that movie wasn't that good, the way that it was constructed is impressive and it's cool.
Yeah. The handholds it gives you to kind of help you understand, which didn't feel demeaning. Because sometimes in a movie like that, where like a murder mystery, where you're trying to follow a plot, sometimes if the handholds are too obvious, it's patronizing. I needed it in this movie. Every single time they were like, by the way, this is who this person actually is. I was like, thank God. Yeah. I was like, I needed that right now.
But you still had to pay attention. It wasn't like your hand was held.
No.
Yeah,
you had to watch. The ending, I was like really happy. Okay, that's just, like I need to watch it again to kind of like really make sure I understood what happened.
It works on the rewatch.
There is a twist. We won't, I guess, fully spoil it, but like there is a twist at the end, and I'm like, wait, what does that mean for all of these other things? Like you've kind of reversed back in your mind and like figure it out.
Yeah,
really good, dude.
Really good. I'm so fired up that you watched it.
That's so good. Yeah. One other random scene I wanted to shout out, the editing in this movie is incredible. The sequence where they show the party from 8 years ago, where they're cutting between frames, as a I guess speaking as like a graphic designer, it's really, some of the things they do in that are like kind of impossible because they're cutting pieces of photos and it's like what is happening in the photo is changing. That is so hard to do well. My mind was blown. I went back and rewatched it immediately because I was like, how did that happen?
It's really incredible. It's so impressive. And it just, I love the movie theater. I think everyone should see movies in movie theaters. Yeah. Netflix makes me sad because sometimes there are really good movies on there that are just there and nobody knows. And this one was recommended to me and I can't stop telling people to watch it because everyone has Netflix. Yes. Everyone's like, oh, I'm going to watch the new season of some weird documentary that's true crime. I said, no, what if you watch something cool instead?
Yeah. There is a lot of language in this movie. Quick content warning: a lot of language, and there's some sex stuff in it. It's pretty. It's not like explicit. There's no nudity in it, like whatsoever. But there are some pretty intense like sexual elements in it. So that's something just to watch out for.
It's a good disclaimer.
What else did I want to talk about? We watched The Brutalist together. I think I'm not really pulling for it. What do you want to win Best Picture? We said we were going to talk about the Oscars a little bit.
I mean, I guess Dune Part 2.
It's not going to happen.
I know. Well,
what realistically do you want to win Best Picture?
I mean, if it's the choices are The Brutalist or Anora, then I want Brutalist to win because I did not like Anora.
Yeah.
And I don't recommend that anybody watches it. That to me is gratuity for the sake of, just to excite your senses in a way that I think is inappropriate, as opposed to the substance where it's like gratuity for the sake of making a point. And I thought Anora was disgusting.
Favorite B movie of the year was Carry On. Did you see Carry On on Netflix?
Yeah. It didn't work for me.
Stupid and fun.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's great. I just, scrolling through my list. I mentioned some disappointments. Probably, I had 2 major disappointments this year. One was Wicked. Let me get to Wicked in a sec.
Great.
The movie that I think was really like bummed me out the most because I had so much anticipation going into it was Saturday Night. Did you see Saturday Night?
I did, yeah.
Dude, I was really excited for this. I love SNL. So Saturday Night, it's about the very first night of SNL. It's basically like a real-time movie. I think it starts like 2 hours before they go live with the first episode of SNL. Great premise. It takes place at 30 Rock. It looks like 30 Rock. The set, I don't know if they filmed that in Studio 8H or if they went, whatever. But I was like stoked. And dude, this movie let me down. It's been like 2 months since I saw it. I think it was ultimately just nothing actually happens in it. Like it just is kind of a whirling dervish of him having to encounter all these things. No character development, no arc. Think of a movie like, I mean, this is a very high bar, but like The Social Network, but even like a Steve Jobs, where it's like we're seeing procedurally how something came to be. This movie, I think falls really flat. It shows you nothing about any true like character moments.
I think when I watched Saturday Night, I agree. I was let down because I was pretty fired up. I'm not a huge Saturday Night Live fan, but I thought this movie looks cool. I've historically liked some of Jason Reitman's movies. It's one of those movies where every scene that you're watching, to me, I was like, this is a cool scene. And then the next thing you're like, this is a cool scene.
Okay, yeah.
And then the next thing you're like, wow, these performances are great, that add up to literally nothing.
Yes. Great way to put it.
So it's like every scene is cool and then the movie is nothing.
And then it ends. And you're like,
which is just disappointing because I feel like they had everything they needed to make it great.
Yeah.
And it somehow just didn't land.
Ooh, another interesting comparison from more recently is Dumb Money.
Oh yeah,
where it was like fun. And
I like that.
I think there were actual Paul Dano's character, I think, goes through a kind of transformation. Like I don't know, you're rooting for him. I was rooting for Paul Dano and Dumb Money in a way that I was not rooting for Lorne Michaels. I don't even know the name of the actor who played Lorne Michaels, but for Lorne Michaels in
Gabriel
in
LaBelle.
Gabriel LaBelle.
Yeah.
Okay. Wicked. We've spent so much time talking about things that we love. I almost don't want to end on talking about things that we hate.
We can shout out some good things to end.
Okay. I hated Wicked. I've been accused of wanting to hate Wicked going into it. I thought Wicked looked bad from the first trailer. Like just the very first trailer. I was
Really?
like, this does not. Aesthetics are so important to me. Color, production design, lighting, set, costumes, all that really matters to me. It's one of my favorite things about movies. I like the way I want to like the way movies look.
Sure.
It matters to me a lot how movies look. And I love Wicked, the musical, like the stage musical. And I just thought the movie looked awful.
Garbage.
It didn't look like Wicked. I'm so confused by how many people like it's not gonna win Best Picture. It's gonna kind of clean up in the below the line like crafts categories, and I don't understand.
We'll see. I'm optimistic it won't.
I hope it doesn't. It's running in first for like costumes, hair and makeup, production design. Is it nominated for cinematography?
I think it is actually.
That is wild if it is. What's so confounding to me is they built real sets.
It's not.
Thank God.
Everybody calm down.
Praise God.
It's not. We did
What's
it.
so confounding to me, they built real sets. Like there was a whole featurette on all this incredible like stuff they built on a soundstage. It looks like green screen. It looks like green screen garbage. I don't understand how this happened. There's nothing to ground it. It looks like Descendants, the Disney Channel movie. That's what I always compare it to visually. Like it just has that like Disney sparkly glow to it.
Yeah, it's not good. Have you seen the show?
No.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
The play.
I thought that you were referring to a movie called The Show.
No, I'm sorry.
Yes, I saw it when I was a kid, and then I saw it just a couple weeks ago.
Oh,
at the Pantages, and I love the show.
Yeah.
And part of the frustrating thing for me is I thought it didn't reflect what the show looks like at all. It has that cool, dark, grungy, steampunk kind of look to it. All the gears, I think, are such a cool visual motif.
Yeah.
Barely appear in the movie version of it. I think a little bit at the end when they're up in the tower. But I thought it looked bad. That's kind of my number one grievance. And then I just think, I don't know if it's fair to hold this against the movie, but the part one issue to me,
I can't.
It is so unsatisfying narratively. Do you know what I mean? Like, as a standalone experience, I took someone to see. Me and Sam took someone to see it that had never seen the musical, didn't know anything about the story, and I was like, was that a fulfilling narrative? Like was that a fulfilling story? And the answer, she said no. Like it's just not. Like nothing. It's character development. Nothing actually happens. Didn't think it needed to be 2 hours and 40 minutes. Good golly.
The show, if you see it on stage, is 2 hours and 45 minutes for the entire thing, which is, and that includes a 15-minute intermission. Yeah. So technically the movie is longer in part one than the entire show, which kills me.
Wild. And then my only other thing is the fact that they kind of like cut up and elongated songs was driving me crazy. Like Defying Gravity takes like 15 minutes to get through.
It's wild.
It's so long. And then she's falling and looking at herself in the reflection. It was all too much. It was like they didn't cut anything. It was like every idea they had for any visual moment, any like beat, it is all in there. And I'm like, make some edits. Like get like 2 hours. You could have gotten this in 2 hours. Hour 50.
Could we just not split movies in half?
I think that would be great.
I mean, that would be really nice.
Rarely do I like that.
A couple things that we can talk about were good.
Okay.
Ariana Grande, really good. Really impressive.
Even that I'm
okay. Well, I was a fan.
Cynthia Erivo.
Cynthia Erivo has a great voice, but if you compare the way she played that character to the way that the stage character is written, it is totally different. And really, she is such a downer in this movie that it's hard to even care or root for her, I felt like. What
do you mean downer?
So, like, in the play,
yeah,
Elphaba obviously has this defining characteristic that she sort of wears like a chip on her shoulder.
Yeah.
But she does it in a very light and playful and funny way.
Okay.
And maybe that's a stage thing because we got to play to the back row and it's big and expressive.
Yeah.
But Cynthia Erivo is just like Grumpy McGrumpyson the whole time. There's no joy in her performance at all. There's no fun. The movie is not fun. There's no fun in the movie at all, other than, some like side lines and Ariana Grande being, I think, actually pretty charming and funny. But Cynthia Erivo, I think, brings the movie. Her voice is incredible. I think she's a good actress. But the way that she plays Elphaba, to me, did not work at all.
Yeah. Maybe part two will be great.
Part two is a much different vibe than part one in the play. So it'll be interesting because it's much darker.
Dude,
it gets real dark in part two.
What if part two wins Best Picture in 2020?
I don't want to talk about that. We can't.
What other movies did you like this year before we wrap up?
I thought it was a pretty good year for horror, which I know you don't like.
Yes,
but
I don't watch
Heretic,
horror.
I feel like you could watch.
Yeah, and I love Hugh Grant.
Some good themes in there to think about. We also got, I think the most fun I had in a movie theater this year was Alien Romulus.
Oh, okay.
Which I really liked. And you could have watched that too. It's really good. It's not that scary.
Did you see this poster on this thing?
It's not, come on. It's a monster movie. There's no like demons. It's great. It's really fun. It's really exciting. It's a big blockbuster that we didn't get like any good, like great blockbusters this year. There were no fun tentpole movies.
The only one we got you hated, which was Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh my gosh.
Which I have not seen yet.
Well, never.
I don't think I'm going to hate it as much as you do.
Probably not, but don't watch it.
We haven't said Inside Out 2. Inside Out 2 was good. I feel like it got a little forgotten. Yeah, I think so.
I didn't like it.
I mean, it's not in my top 5. But.
I thought Jury Number 2 was good. And I stand by that. I pick juries for a living, and it's super not realistic, but I really had a good time watching it.
Shout out to you. My favorite movie that I haven't seen yet is We Live in Time. I haven't seen it yet. I think I'm going to like it. I love Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield. Probably my favorite actress and actor are the two of them. And
fair.
So I think because I've been so excited and I have heard that it is not like great, I've been a little bit like afraid to watch it because I want it to be good.
It made me mad.
Yeah.
But we sometimes if I don't like it, it means you really like it. So there's hope for you still.
Sometimes.
Yeah, there's hope.
We'll see.
Flo, shout out to Flo. Cool movie.
Cats.
Man. Latvia filmmaker just making it on his computer, and it looks really cool. And there's no dialogue in the movie, but it really works.
Yeah.
So I thought that was great too.
What's the number one movie you want me to watch? Oh, it was the Japanese movie, probably.
Oh yeah.
I got to add that to my list.
Well, I texted you before and I said, please watch It's What's Inside. So I'm really fired up that you did that.
Oh, dude. Solid.
Oh, the one last thing, and I think that you should watch this. This is it doesn't have to be the last thing for you, but I think the last movie I want to shout out, because another one that I've thought about a lot, is A Different Man. Have you seen that?
Oh, the Sebastian Stan movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It is a little hard to watch at times.
Yeah.
The ending gets a little unhinged, but it's basically about this guy who has a very significant facial deformity.
Yeah.
Who basically lives his life with that huge chip on his shoulder about his facial deformity and lives his life governed by that.
Yeah.
And he has the opportunity to be healed or changed from that.
Yeah.
And after he's changed, it's interesting how his life changes and also how his life doesn't change because it's more about what was inside than what was on the outside.
Wow.
It's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
It's a movie that like I thought about a lot. And so I know Sebastian Stan is being talked about because he got nominated for another role.
Did you see The Apprentice?
I didn't see it. It didn't seem that exciting to me. So it's A Different Man. I thought was really good.
Yeah. I'm curious now to see it. To see both of those just because, I don't know, nominations are interesting to me. Anything else I want to hit? I don't think so. My wife loved A Real Pain. I didn't really get it. I thought Conclave was good. If that won Best Picture, I'd be fine with that.
Oh, yeah. I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Do we want to talk about Best Picture?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if there's much I can say.
Okay. Yeah.
Because of where I'm at with it.
Right. It's not great.
Yeah, I think we both... Well, if I was going to choose Best Picture, I'd probably... No, I would choose Dune Part 2 because that'd be sick.
Dune Part 2. I'm in.
That'd be sick.
Let's vote.
Let's vote
for it.
I would choose that over Timothée Chalamet, even though I love that movie. And I would be stoked. That movie seems to be kind of running in third place.
Complete Unknown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if that was like an Oscar night surprise, dude, I'm gonna be stoked.
I don't think it's gonna happen.
No, I don't think so. I think Brutalist or Anora, and it's leaning towards Anora.
For sure.
Definitely, probably the most it's felt like nobody has seen the Best Picture nominees, I think, ever.
I think I read or heard something today that the nominations are like some of the lowest grossing movies of all time. So
you got Wicked and you got Dune Part 2. And even Dune Part 2 is a little bit more of what AMC would call an artisan film. You know, it's like a little bit, it has that more indie sensibility to it. Whereas Wicked is straight popcorn. Yeah, I don't know.
Weird year.
Strange year. Yeah, I'm still going to be playing catch up. There might be a few things that I find that I'm like, wow, this is amazing. But here's to watching more movies in 2025. You think 2025 is going to be a good movie year?
You know, maybe.
It's been rough sledding so far.
I don't have that much that I'm excited about in 2025.
We'll see how Mickey 17 is. I've heard it's fine.
Yay. Yeah. Well, this was super fun. Thank you for having me on.
We went for a long time. Thank you for hanging out.
We did. Yeah, I love talking about movies. I love talking about other stuff. I love talking about Jesus too. So
for sure.
This was super fun. I'm really fired up to have been here.
Yeah, thanks for being on, Michael.
Cool.